and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You did.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Yep.
Okay.
You sure did. Yeah.
I got.
Our minds are going.
I've had a really busy month at work, but I've been trying to do it like as soon as I get it, and I did it. I was so efficient that I forgot I did it. So I was just like, I said to Andrea, I did do it. I know I did it.
Yeah, you did.
I could double check. But I think the system's working well. We're getting our emails right away, and I think Sharon acknowledged.
She did.
Yes. And then I acknowledged from the board.
It was awesome.
That's our plan. Is we're going to try to have Sharon acknowledge that she got it and send it to us, and then we'll acknowledge that we got it.
Okay, and I believe we have, I don't know where it ended up on the agenda, but we have a discussion item, sort of a related discussion item to your email on the agenda somewhere. Okay. And the other two, Matthew Wade and Gary DeLisle, I think it was Gary DeLisle.
Correct.
Were the candidates for the Area 7 NISBA, which we had appointed last time, and then Michael Ford was decision making on school boards, a survey request. So that is really up to each board member individually. 2.0, we are on to the district school program report.
Well, good evening, everyone, and happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. have Kwanzaa over in the books as well as Happy Hanukkah. So we got all the December important holidays acknowledged. Obviously, the Common Core, which is a follow-up that we talked about last month, this has been probably the most controversial initiative, and certainly in my recollection. Last night, just as an example, the Republican, mostly Assembly members, although there were 2 Assembly members that were Democrat, joined by Congressman Gibson at Hudson Valley to discuss the Common Core, the issues. Certainly listened to folks who've had their experiences with as parents or teachers or researchers in terms of Common Core. And the only way I'd like to summarize fairly complex areas is in 4 strands coming at you at the same time. One's related to the curriculum itself, which has been established through a consortium of states and their representatives and their curriculum people to establish kind of a national curriculum, although it's not federalized. It's really a consortium of states that come to an agreement as to this is the standard curriculum. So there's consistency between states. A lot of controversy about its development and the assumptions in which it's based. The primary issue has been at least described as our students do not fare well when they compete internationally. And the other piece, of course, is that many colleges and universities reported that many students entering their colleges and universities have to take remedial courses because they're not college ready or career ready. So that were the 2 strands that had the consortium of governors pull together what kind of standardized their assumptions, and they benchmark those standards to the notion of college readiness and career readiness. Going forward, we'll come back to that piece. Then, of course, there's the other strand is high-stakes testing and how the testing is used, both in terms of the students and the controversies surrounding certain students, particularly how special ed students by grade level will be having to take those tests, although another federal law talks about developing IEPs. They're obviously specific to that child, and modifications appropriate to that child, supports appropriate to that child. But the bottom line is when they take the test, they're taking that at their peer group. So there's a lot of concern by a lot of people about that. So there's high-stakes testing. The other component of that is how it's used in terms of evaluating personnel, teacher performance, administrative performance. The other strand has to do with the in-bloom, particularly how the data is being collected or being proposed to be collected, and to what extent it is preserved and it's not abridged by other vendors, and how that all came about. And that's really, of all the things I just described, that's probably the most pernicious, or potentially the most pernicious. And the intention there, at least it appears that in-bloom and that company, that vendor, will be able to share that data with other vendors and then use that data to develop products that could be then resold to parents, because they'll have specific information with groups and individuals about certain needs that the child may have. So that's part of what Senator Flanagan's initiative is, to try to develop legislation to protect that. The Assembly, of course, is going to have their bills in to see if they can protect that as well. So they're the primary initiatives with respect to Common Core, high-stake testing, APPR, and the quality of the APPR process, and as well as in-bloom. So you got a lot of things coming in at the same time. That's what makes it so challenging. But specifically on the curriculum has been K-12 developed through state created these modules in different ways of rollout. Many of them are still not completed. Many of them are not consistent between grades, because that's another controversy where research fellows the shadow SED, which was been chronicled in the Times-Union, where SED has proprietary information. However, they created this philanthropic organization hiring research fellows to develop the information, and we cannot access it through FOILs. Anybody, any state person cannot access that information, who's involved, what the information is, and that, as the education committee chairperson of the New York State Assembly indicated, that they never even knew about it. So that's another piece of this thing. So there's no question that our teachers have found that the just blanketing K-12 with a higher standard has been problematic without any kind of training, minimal dollars in supporting school districts, supporting teachers and staff development, and doing it all at once. So there's been a lot of controversy in K-12. It'll continue. This afternoon, my understanding is Merrill Tisch, the chancellor of the Regents, has established a task force to now evaluate where they are in terms of the rollout process, which seems like $1 short.
Yeah,
a little late. And maybe it's just to appease all the criticism. But the Assembly now seems to be on board, both Republicans, Democrats. Senator Flanagan went around the state collecting information, and the stories are exactly the same, whether you're in Buffalo, whether you're in Westchester, whether you're in Long Island, or whether you're in central New York. It's still the same kind of issues and concerns. I think most folks would say that it's worthy to improve our curriculum, to make it more rigorous, but it's the implementation process that's really been very problematic for every school. So that's somewhat a condensed version because there is complexity. But I think the most thing that we need to be fearful of is the bloom.
Yeah.
And I was sending you some articles about it as well. So the good news is that I think the politicians, the legislators, the lawmakers are very now finally well aware of it.
So, I'm just thinking action to come out of this. Sounds like really they're just trying to get legislation going so that they can protect the information, number one, right? But then there really can't be any legislation per se on the testing, right? That really does fall under SED.
Well, Senator Flanagan's recommendation, I believe, is that there would be no state standardized testing K-2 by law. That's his recommendation.
That's great.
Pardon me?
That's great. But then there's the rest of the grades, too.
There's many recommendations that this committee has, and it's fairly specific. Our staff has been devoted to try to make it work. There's been training. We've provided training that's costly.
Yep.
And his Senator Flanagan's recommendation in terms of the state budget is to put significant dollars in professional development for local schools.
I'm not sure how much we would get out of that. But
Yeah.
Next item,
Yes.
kind of what we can do about it.
Yeah, this is what Ms. Gavin has shared with us. There are resolutions that many New York State school boards and school districts have adopted just to raise the concern of the over-testing of our students. And we had a sample resolution that was somewhat customized for Wynantskill, but it's something that you may want to consider making a statement if you believe it. I think our staff believes that we're testing too much. One of the things that I'm going to be concerned about, and certainly will share with you, we may be unlucky in terms of being randomly selected. Every place I go, I get selected randomly, so I think it's me. But where we do field testing, outside field testing, I'm not a big proponent of the outside field testing because this is a test that serves no interest to our students, our staff, our school, other than the test maker.
It's just to get like a baseline?
Yeah, just to get research out of our students. I would certainly, if parents wanted to have their child participate, we certainly wouldn't deny them, but I would make certain parents are informed that the testing is very different than the testing that's done in the springtime. Now, there's controversy about that as well, and some parents have opted out. But personally, I think that's still beneficial to us as a school as well as a staff. But as far as the field testing, it's a different issue. Now, if the company wants to hire parents and students to take the test on a Saturday, I think that's a good thing. And that's their choice. But for us to put our kids through another test, I want to make sure parents are fully informed about that.
So I don't know.
What is the point?
Yeah, right.
What would be the point?
The resolution?
Yeah.
It's just a statement. It's more of it has no bearing other than joining other districts, expressing in a way that this Wynantskill School District, school community as you represent, have concerns about the testing that's going on in schools, the over-testing.
Now, the Washington Post reported the other day, the head of one of the national teachers unions, along with some conservative guy, I don't know who it was, came out in favor of the Common Core and encouraged the school districts to stay the course.
Yeah.
You know, I certainly don't know about as much of it as you do. And I have concerns about, transmission of information and the data collection by a private company. I'm also a realist that, legislation is going, if it ever comes, is going to be watered down. And, ultimately preventing private corporations from getting data as insidious as it is, it's almost, it's a losing proposition. There's so much money tied up in this. I fought a case, privacy to the Court of Appeals, and, you're constantly putting your finger in the dam. With respect to testing, my daughter's just going to be starting this year with testing. She's in 3rd grade. I don't know, I hear a lot of stories about children that are extremely upset about taking tests. And whenever I hear that, I always wonder, why? I don't put pressure on my daughter about these tests. I don't know whether other parents are overly concerned about them, or whether it's coming from teachers that are overly concerned about them, putting pressure on the kids. But there should be no pressure on the kids to take these things. They're not, they're not going to ruin their life if they do really one of these things. And I haven't heard really any alternatives either. If we say that we don't want this, what is the alternative to it? To go back to the way it was?
Yeah. Do you want to comment on further?
No.
I think there is concern with respect to the quality and the uniform quality of students graduating from school. I think there's clear evidence to indicate that. So to address that with a stronger curriculum, a little bit more rigorous than currently, holding kids more accountable for performance, I think is certainly, we agree to that. I think most people would agree to that. So the Common Core itself, by itself, is not something that most people would be seeing as bad. The New York State, how it's applied it in terms of its implementation, that's where the problem is on the Common Core. And the materials that have been provided as supplemental to support it have been shoddy, have been inconsistent, and this is the research fellow, the shadow SED group. So I think all of that over time will sort itself out. When the 5th grader is being presented with material that is very different for them, it takes a while for that child to respond to it. Instead of going, like, say, they did K3 and then did 4, 6, and then
They weren't prepped for it.
They were not prepped. So
Yeah.
and the teachers were not prepared, and the materials were not prepared. So the whole implementation process of Common Core has been really, really sloppy. They talk about Obamacare as being problematic. This is the worst. This is 10 times worse. So that's one piece. So I don't think anyone's concerned about the curriculum itself or what the goals are. The assessments are fine as far as I'm concerned because you just got to make them tighter between what it says and how it's used. With the special ed arena, to me, it's immoral to have a child have those kind of supports, and then this is not a new story either. This is an old story, and then being forced to take a 5th grade test, and if he or she is not at that readiness level, it's devastating to that child. So that subset of kid is very different than your average student. That has to be addressed, and there's federal laws that are in conflict. 94-142 prescribes an IEP with very specific supports, and then when you take the state test, they take them away. It just doesn't make sense. So that subset is problematic. The APPR, I can talk a lot about that. I'm not sure if there's any research that supports what we're doing in terms of assessing really teacher quality and administrative quality, the way it's structured. Do I believe there needs to be a connection between performance of students? Yes. But how it's structured in New York State, it just doesn't make sense. It's just going to be an exercise that we all go through, and it's just not going to have the kind of impact that people thought it was going to have. Certainly the lay people. I think people in the know, knew, but I don't think the lay people.
Back to the testing, I mean, have there been good, suggestions as an alternate, other measures, things like that?
For the current testing, we're full speed. No, we're full speed ahead.
No. I mean in general.
Yeah.
Just kind of out there.
I mean,
opposed to the testing, yes, but you still have to measure how students are doing.
It just needs to be improved. I see over time it'll be improved to have congruency between what's being taught and what's being assessed. The other issue with the assessments is they do field testing within the assessment. So ironically, a lot of the kids who are good students have hit brick walls and got upset because they were confronted with questions that they had no clue what they were. Normally they would get 100%, certainly knowledge of the questions, probably 99% correct. But because they embedded field testing in it, which made it more difficult, a lot of them ran into that frustration point of like, I don't know what these things mean. And they broke down about that. So ironically, it was the higher performing students that felt angst more so than maybe some of the other students. But I think over time, to answer your question, I think over time that'll improve. But we're just going to have to muddle through those pieces. The other part of it is, and that's the criticism, that we don't have access to the test. So the assessment was not available to us after the fact, so we can learn from that. We can't get individual student information or group information, and typically that's what assessment. If you look at our NWEA testing that we do, you get immediate feedback about where the skills issues are with students, not with the state testing. Although they've made some improvements to kind of allay some of the concerns and criticisms, but we do not have access to the test. And the reason why we can't foil the test is because it's proprietary with the vendor.
Yep.
If it was a state ed test, we would be able to access the test. If you recall New York State students, your Regents exams, you would know what the Regents exam test was after the fact. And then teachers would be able to use that information to improve their instruction. With these tests, you're not able to get that information.
What is the rationale?
Well, I think it's dollars, it's cost. So the private vendor is holding those cards because that takes dollars to change the testing. And that's what they did as a strict strategy. The old days, the state ed department, along with teachers, would create testing no longer. So they provide vendors for it.
I don't know, and the influence stuff, I mean, I kind of consider that similar to HIPAA. I mean, medical, privacy on medical issues. I mean, just that type of information information on kids' education.
Just out there.
But sadly, I just think I'm very discouraged about that. I mean, to protect them from wanting, they can listen to a phone call. They can look at my email, private companies can do any number of things, government can do any number of things. And while insidious, I mean, what is the point of us saying, at a meeting, we don't like this, we don't like that a private company is involved at all. Rather than we don't like that private company is going to have the ability to do with this information as they wish. And quite honestly, it would be, I guess it would be comforting to some for us to say that. But money talks. I mean, unless the community and the people are going to start, putting money up to candidates, this stuff isn't going to change.
Well, the resolution that was being considered doesn't address that specific point.
Yeah.
It's really a concern about testing, the over-testing.
We're just stating it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we as a board could choose to write a letter to
Yeah.
whoever you think would be the most.
Well, we vote, the Education Committee, and both Senate and Assembly, and the governor has somehow magically indicated that he no longer doesn't have influence over the state department. That's something independent. So he was self-described as a student lobbyist, if I remember correctly, when he first took office. It's kind of interesting that the governor of the state feels now that doesn't have any responsibility over the state department.
So we will appoint the commissioner.
The board.
Basically, the assembly and the assembly leader and speaker, and today he came out with concerns about Kim Bloom, first time.
And it was signed by 50 assemblymen. Members signed the letter.
First time. And of course, he's been blocked for all this criticism you've heard, and responsible for appointing Chancellor Fish. So this is the first time that he's responded today.
So I don't know, what is the board
So
think
now,
about the
if
resolution?
if we were to pass this resolution, our name gets added to that list.
Correct.
And I guess I was just thinking, logistically, I mean, would it be better if we wrote a letter? Would we have more impact? Could do both. I mean, I guess, would it? It's not that, I mean, I agree with it, but what would have the most impact?
Well, I think the board is voting on it would have the legal impact of the statement going out. But you can do it the other way as well. I mean, it's more symbolic, but it's also, I think, showing some solidarity with your community that feels similarly. There's concerns about the over-testing and the reliance on single testing, that the student performance is really a snapshot on one day, and we use multiple measures to assess children and staff, but I think that's the other piece, that it's relying on one single test to determine on one afternoon or one morning, this is how this child is performing today. So it's really, either way I think would be fine. The voting on it would give the legal piece to it, I guess, but it's okay. If there's a consensus that you just want to send a letter, that would be fine too.
I'd be fine with both.
Yeah.
I mean, if we